So if there's one thing that's certain from the meteoric rise of Zack Polanski as the leader of the Green Party and the increasing salience of the Green Party politically, given that they've achieved record polling and indeed record membership, it has left a lot of the people on the right who disagree with basically everything that Polanski stands for rattled. They are all rattled. And a lot of things have come out. People have obviously been bringing up the Hypnoboob story, which you can research in your own time, future YouTube viewers. They've also brought up the fact that he changed his name. Funny that they're going after a Jewish man for changing his name back to its historic name that is Jewish, given that it was changed by his forefathers to try and avoid anti-Semitism when they fled from persecution in Europe to the United Kingdom. Weird how they're going after him for changing his name to his historic Jewish name. But apparently anti-Semitism is fine when it's against people on the left. That's basically the rule now, is that anti-Semitism is only one that can go from the left to the right and not the other way around, but whatever. And they've been going after him because he's got, like, a tooth missing as well. They have found every reason under the sun to go after Zack Polanski, other than actually describe any of the politics that he supports. And this is the case with this article that we're going to read right now, which is a huge amount of cope, and also quite a strange article. First of all, I don't think you should trust anybody who allows a caricaturist to do them dirty like this, you know? Actually, maybe he just looks like that. Let me have a Google. Maybe it's actually not a bad caricature. Oh my fucking... He does just look like that. He does actually just look like that. I mean, I'm never usually one to be mean about people, but I was not expecting him to literally look exactly like what the caricature makes him look like. I thought this was them being mean at the Spectator. No, turns out he is just an egg. Anyway, he thinks that he has sussed, this Gareth Roberts man, that the Green Party's membership is not all it seems. I indeed wonder what he means to say. This article. Shall we read on? As has been pointed out in chat, again, before we read on, it's worth noting that you shouldn't trust anybody who writes for The Spectator, given that previous people who've written for The Spectator have written articles such as In Defense of the Wehrmacht and defended the Greek neo-Nazi party, the Golden Dawn. Oh, yeah. Not great. Not people you usually want to be associated with. Just going to poison the well a bit for you there. The Greens are having quite a moment. Since the anointing of Zack Polanski as leader of the party, there's been a 45% increase in the membership, which is now up to about 100,000 believers. Believers, apparently. This is a religious cult and not a political party. Not ideologues now, just believers. Followers. Disciples, shall we say. The party is also doing very well, comparatively speaking, in opinion polling, reaching about 15%, not very far behind the Tories. But while the Greens are keen to talk up their polling success and growing membership, which is naturally good for the party coffers, it won't necessarily correlate into wider electoral success. Worth pointing out, perfectly true. Perfectly reasonable to talk about the fact that just because you get a bunch of people becoming paying members doesn't mean you're going to win any elections anytime soon. But what I will say is that the next part, slightly less cogent. Been here before, during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of Labour, the membership peaked at a modern high of about 500,000, and we all know how that ended. Well, yeah, it ended with them getting 40% of the vote in 2017, right? Like, broadly, if you look at the number of people who are members of a political party, in basically every election that we've had in this country, it's roughly mirrored how the voting percentages worked out, like one place, you know? Like, the Tories and Labour were the top two. They were the top two in 2017 and 2019, right? The numbers were shifted around. Tories got slightly more than Labour in 2017, despite having fewer members. But broadly, the bigger parties with bigger memberships do better at the election. And not just because it's a barometer of the amount of people that support them, but it's also a barometer of the number of people that can go out and campaign. Whilst it's never a one-to-one ratio, and certainly sometimes it's slightly different, it's a reasonable estimate of the popularity of a party, the number of people who are members. It stands to reason that Reform UK, second biggest party in this country by membership, they've got more than double the members that the Tories have, and that's why they're polling at almost more than double what the Tories are currently polling at, and that they're first in the polls, and that Labour are second, given that Reform and Labour are the two biggest, right? It's not an exact science, but it doesn't not give you an idea of what the lay of the land is. An electoral success is down to the electoral system. When you look at the percentage of the vote, like, this mostly how it works out is it sort of correlates to the ranking by memberships as well. The Polanski surge has come courtesy of a Corbyn-esque policy blitz, including abolishing landlords, legalising every recreational drug, and opening up the nation's borders to all and sundry. Worth pointing out, no one is advocating for open borders. There would still be a closed border, you would still need a visa to come here, or you would need to arrive via an asylum route to be able to claim asylum. That would still be the method of getting to this country, a closed border, which is the same that we currently have right now. That is not changing. Although it's worth pointing out that the policy blitz was down to the membership who voted on it at conference, right? Zack didn't come out unilaterally saying that we should abolish landlords. This was a policy that was proposed at conference that we voted on 2 weeks ago. This was voted on at conference previously, this was proposed at conference previously, but it's not coming from the Mount via Zack Polanski. This is from the party membership deciding to vote on it. Green voters clearly like what they see. Success beckons, or does it? The truth is that the Greens' booming membership still makes up a tiny group. It's so hard for us poor humans with our Neolithic village-sized brains to grasp big numbers. Comparatively tiny amounts of people can have a disproportionately huge influence in the public sphere, deluding both themselves and us. 105,000 people, the Greens' reported membership, is 0.16% of the population. Now, it's worth pointing out that giving it as a percentage of the population is fucking meaningless, given that that's basically always been what party membership represents, right? But again, it still doesn't change the fact that, broadly, party membership represents a lay of the land of where public support is. Because it generally, not only will correlate with election voting percentages, but also polling as well. Because by saying that, you could also make the same case that, well, Reform UK have got 0.4% of the population, which is also not very much at all, so why should that translate into electoral success? All of the same internal algorithms that he is invoking here be applied to Reform UK in just the same way. I'm reminded of the story of Michael Foot emerging from a barnstorming public meeting during the 1983 general election campaign to be told that Labour are doing very badly in the polls, and replying that he absolutely rocked the hall. Or that feeling you get when you attend a rapturous, crowded gig by a band who haven't actually had a hit for years. A crowd might reflect something in the air, yes, but a crowd can also be a mirage. The problem is that when you're at a gig or at a campaign rally, that is self-selecting for people who are already in on the game. That is self-selecting for the people who are already supporters. What the new membership for the Greens tells you is that these are new supporters. Like, it's not just cutting through with the already converted, it is converting new people by growing the overall membership, right? Sure, it is absolutely true that if you do a campaign rally and loads of people turn up, that doesn't tell you your appeal to the wider electorate, it only tells you your appeal to the chosen faithful. When you have people coming in from outside the fold, that does show that you're cutting through. That does show that you speak to more than just the party faithful, because you're increasing the number of party faithful. This is not a reasonable analogy. Research from electoral calculus tells us, for example, that the people who form the establishment of the country, necessarily a small group, are overwhelmingly progressive left in their opinions, splitting an astonishing 75% in favour of the left. Okay, chat. So this is where this article gets weird. Okay, this is where this article gets incredibly weird. I have the poll, the research that he is quoting here, in a separate tab. Without looking for yourselves, chat, I would like you, in chat, to just tell me what you think you hear the word establishment. What professions, when you hear the word establishment, do you have in your head? I say that word, right? Just going to give you some ideas in chat about what you think would constitute an establishment occupation. Lawyers, journalists, columnists, lawyers, landlords, politicians, the police, judges, bankers, lawyers, bankers, police, accountants, civil service, hedge fund managers. You know what? This all seems reasonable to me. Like, in my head, I would immediately go towards politicians, I would go towards CEOs, I would go towards journalists, with bankers, right, and landlords, legacy media, the rich, basically, you know? That's where my brain goes. It's not where this research goes, by the way, champ. Just gonna spoil it for you now. The research does not treat bankers, journalists, CEOs, or landlords, or millionaires as members of the establishment. So this research by electoral calculus was commissioned by The Telegraph. So The Telegraph are the ones who have curated what the chosen professions that are the establishment to be. And, well, they have decided on 3 subgroups for the establishment: lecturing, i.e. school teachers, university academics, and people who work in the arts; the professional establishment, i.e. civil servants, legal professionals, and nurses; and they've also got the armed forces and the police. So whilst some of the things that were in these lists was mentioned there, like academics and lawyers and the police, right, and civil servants, you know, the fact they're also including, like, nurses and primary school teachers in this list of the establishment, and not including hedge funders, bankers, CEOs, millionaires, or landlords, just shows you that it's very Telegraph coded, right? You know? So it's very interesting that they are self-selecting the establishment professions by what they already know to be left-wing, and conveniently missing out any of the economic establishment. Yeah, well, they're describing it as the epistemic class, exactly. That's a good point, Set the Shallow, yeah? Because nurses and teachers are not the establishment. I hate to break it to you, chat. As much as I wish that they were, God knows this country would be better if they were, but unfortunately, it is the media moguls, the billionaires, the CEOs, and the hedge fund bankers that really actually do run this country, because those are the people who get to control policy, not indeed nurses and paramedics. And basically what they found is these people, the lecturing professional classes, are broadly left-wing, and the security establishment, i.e. police and armed forces, are broadly right-wing. That's what this research finds out. It's no more complex than that. The article continues. These are the kinds of people, joiners, who are drawn to such careers. The temperamental difference between left and right is very visible here. Few careers would appeal less to me, a conservative, than sticking my beak into others' business, correcting people, boondoggling, and shaping society along eccentric lines. I mean, you are quite literally sticking your beak into the Greens Party's businesses here, but whatever. We'll let that one go. Although, the idea that there is an eccentric nature to academics engaging in academia shows you just how conservatism is essentially based in skepticism of intelligence, right? Conservatism, especially modern conservatism, is entirely based in a rejection of meritocracy. Not only because they care far more about inherited wealth than they do about earned wealth, but broadly, they fundamentally are at odds with those who actually know what the fuck they're talking about. To be fair, they loved universities when they were the only ones allowed or able to go to them, and that's basically true. Basically true, Nixai, insofar as the universities have become opened up to lower classes in the post-Blair boom, given they became profit-seeking institutions rather than self-selecting for people from the right class background, which they can't afford to do so if they need to make money from tuition fees. This opening up of the university sector to a broader spectrum of society has basically made them a lot more progressive in that regard, yeah. But also it just turns out that reality has a left-wing bias. When you learn about reality by being an academic and having to learn about these things professionally, suddenly it makes you a little bit more progressive. And what we are still pleased to call the left, such characters abound. As Yeats so nearly had it, the worst are full of passionate intensity, while the best can't really be asked with it all. I mean, you are quite literally here with passionate intensity because you write a newspaper opinion piece. Like, you are literally writing an opinion piece in a magazine. That is passionate intensity. Like, if you didn't really be asked with it all, Mr. Roberts, you'd shut the fuck up and stop bleating your uninformed claptrap in the pages of The Spectator, but you do you, I guess. And look at where the domination of this small stratum of people in establishment positions has led us. Massively in hoc to China? Oh, okay. We've moved on from, well, these people are all woke lefties because they've been indoctrinated by cultural Marxism, to quite literally, our civil servants, lecturers, and nurses are assets of the Chinese Communist Party. Okay. Again, half of conservatism is just conspiracy theory these days. Rather than just understanding that groups in society have shared material interests and material conditions, and that is the basis for ways in which they approach political policy. No, if they all broadly disagree with me within one specific part of society, then that is evidence of them being owned by somebody else and having their views manipulated. This time by the Chinese Communist Party, apparently. Awash with illegal and illegal immigrants, all of our institutions from Amnesty to Oxford University in reputational rubble. Is he going to provide any evidence at all as to the veracity of the claim that Amnesty and Oxford University are in reputational rubble? What's his quantification for this? How does he quantify what reputational rubble even looks like? I mean, Amnesty have been doing very good work. Maybe because this guy fucking hates Palestinians, I don't know. But Amnesty have done good work in defending the Palestinians against genocide, but again, he probably thinks that's not real. Thinks the UN is captured by anti-Semites, whatever. And Oxford University is still one of the greatest universities in the world in terms of educational attainment. But no, there's oiks from the lower classes in Oxford now. Boo! Boo oiks! Amnesty also spoke in favour of UK trans people. I mean, one of the parts of the survey that was done for the Telegraph by Electoral Calculus was showing that these establishment professions, quote unquote, are out of step with the rest of the public in terms of their support for trans people. I'd just like to make a really important point here. Telegraph, find out now, Gareth Roberts, right, and indeed people who read this column and don't think that it's a bunch of nonsense, right? Maybe it's a problem with the general public if academics and medical professionals take a different view on the validity of trans people to them, right? Like, this idea that somehow the problem with doctors, nurses, paramedics, and academics being pro-trans people is that somehow they have an undue influence with that set of positions, rather than huge swathes of the public aren't agreeing with actual trained medical professionals on medical issues. It's super weird how, when it comes to trans people, it's a damning indictment on the medical profession. Maybe we should take this example with the treatment for cancer, right? Well, all of the medical professionals, they all agree that we should treat cancer with chemo and radiotherapy, and as a upstanding member of society who doesn't trust that woke nonsense from the captured establishment, I would like to do it with homeopathy, please. Progressive activists form at best about 15% of the general population, but they control the works. I mean, no, actually. The general population is controlled by bankers and landlords and CEOs and private equity bosses, right? Like, Larry Fink and BlackRock and multinational corporations have far more sway over how the country is governed than nurses. Just a thought. Like, the civil service, maybe that is one group that you could potentially point the finger at here, but they still have to answer to their ministerial brief based upon who is there asking them to do their job. The civil service, if they were being oppositional to the interests of the government outside of their remit, insofar as scrutinising policy for its legal basis, for example, then that would be a problem. But I've seen no evidence that that's the case. What I do see evidence of is that ministers are trying to be able to go past their actual remit, and that's being stopped by the civil service, and then they throw their toys out the pram. What are the effects of this? As the Tories discovered, winning elections is a piece of cake. Enacting your manifesto is quite another. I mean, yeah, they promised 40 hospitals and then didn't fund 40 hospitals. It's really difficult to promise things in your manifesto that you can't deliver because you refuse to raise taxes or increase the availability of capital investment. In government, reform may well be bogged down by these people in a web of elite spaghetti. I mean, don't try and do things that are illegal. Like, it's simple as that. Oh, we wanted to send people to Rwanda, but we had to break laws to do it. Yeah, that's why the civil service tried to stop you, because it was illegal. Anyway, elite has become a dirty word. It used to mean the best, in the way that we all still say, for example, Katarina Johnson-Thompson is an elite sportswoman. But the data is in, our public elite are in fact a load of lefty wrong-uns. I mean, again, that's your opinion. And second of all, there's always been a tinge of conspiracism related to the word elite. The difference, of course, is that rather than talking about the elites as a bunch of people in middling to professional jobs who have some amount of influence culturally. You're just completely ignoring the giant economic elite of which normal people in this world with real problems actually have concerns with, i.e. those who control our economy during a cost of living crisis. And again, that is a problem. But this is two different definitions of elite. There's always been skepticism of the elites. Populism has always been a thing. All that breezy policy talk at the Tory and Reform conferences, cuts to this, money for that, might as well be weeing in the wind while these people haunt the establishment. I don't know how you think that somehow they can't just pass budgets because of the civil service. They absolutely can just cut budgets if they want to. When was the last time the civil service stopped somebody from enacting fiscal policy? It was amusing to hear Kemi Badenoch reveal her plans at the Tory conference, rather like somebody under house arrest, making a long list of all the marvellous fun shopping for shoes, grab a quick cost, then go up to the pictures they're going to have in town today. Urgent correction is needed, I'm afraid, and there must be no squeamishness. There has to be a screening programme of some kind for these jobs, a modern test act. Maybe use an AI to trawl through their works and see if they've ever used in all seriousness the word systemic. Right, what the fuck? I'm sorry, right? You can't just not self-select for a bunch of professions based upon what you perceive should be the ideological breakdown there, right? Like, again, these people are so dumb. They don't understand that if there is a trend in a certain profession or area or people with a shared set of material and ideological interests, then they will share some kind of policy positions, right? Why is this so difficult? That a trend happening in one area is the basis of what those people represent, not that somehow it's been infiltrated. Oh my god, they're so dumb. And second of all, yes, things are systemic. I know that dumb fuck liberals thinks that literally every person is an individual frictionless sphere floating in a vacuum, and that there is no broader implications or broader set of systems or sets of conflicts that mean that actually people don't just develop completely free of outside influence. But the reality is the opposite. Lots of things are systemic because we live, for example, shock horror, in a system. We live in a system. Like, this shouldn't be so difficult that some things will happen very frequently because of that system. Like, Conservatism is just the political ideology of morons. I'm sorry. I try really hard to understand these people's points of view. I try really fucking hard, chat. I try really hard to try and empathise. But sometimes I just have to come down on the idea that if you're a conservative, it's because you're an idiot. It's because lots of things are complex. The world is complex. And when you get overwhelmed by complexity, you throw your toys out the pram and go, shan't. No, don't want it. No. Fingers in my ears. The world is simple. Everything is black and white. No shades of grey. No nuance. Blah, blah, blah. Right? Please give me the binary world I was told in the storybooks I was reading as a child, rather than the reality that things are complex. That's the reality. I'm sorry. That's just conservatism. It is simple narratives. It's simple black and white received wisdom that they just repeat ad infinitum, no matter how much the actual world around them disagrees. This guy literally wants to have ideological purges of different groups of society just because he disagrees with them. That's it. And because he thinks it's because there's been an infiltration, rather than it being a natural result of the fact that those people have those positions or hold those ideas in their heads that has drawn them towards those professions in the first place. Or indeed that they're smart people, and smart people, funnily enough, not fucking conservatives, you know? A conservative is someone who stands athwart history yelling stop. Literally. So true. Stop the train, I want to get off. Please make it like the simple books I read as a 5-year-old. An entire political ideology based on just so stories. Anyway, I will continue. Reset is needed. It should be, for example, as unacceptable to bang on about the racist rubbish of reparations as it is to use the P or the N word. Why? Why should it be? We paid reparations to the slave owners. Like, again, the idea that somehow the material reality of people in other countries is directly related to the material reality of people in our country based upon the relationship between those two countries historically. Like, yeah, countries in the global south are poorer because countries in the global north are richer. That's the legacy of imperialism. Conservatism is just easy answers to difficult questions, exactly. To me, this is no different than Nick Tenconi saying that he will use the military to deport communists and so-called Islamists. Exactly. I fundamentally agree, right? It's that these people fundamentally just can't hack the fact that people who are smarter than them disagree with them. For all Polanski's window dressing of giving hope to the downtrodden and the hopeless, I suspect that there may be considerable crossover between his new Green members and the progressive elite. There aren't actually very many of them, but they're embedded in all the places that matter. Enough, in fact, more than enough. I mean, first of all, this is just wrong, by the way. This is just wrong. Because the biggest voting group that supports the Green Party are the 18 to 29s, right? Unless, of course, he somehow thinks that the civil service and our nursing profession and our doctors and our judicial system is entirely populated by 23-year-olds. Newsflash, I don't think it is. And again, it shows you the scope that anybody who is bourgeois enough to not have to care thinks about politics, right? Insofar as when he considers the places that matter, on no point did he think about anything to do with the actual economy. At no point did he mention anything about the economy, which is the lens through which most people live their lives. And again, it's worth pointing out that the Green Party's voter base is fundamentally one of the poorest voter bases in the country. The only poorer voter base is Reform. And when you look at the internal polling from More in Common, who do really good work looking at the internal supporter bases of the different parties, right? The thing that Reform UK and Green Party voters share, as well as being the poorest voter bases, they also share the belief that the system has failed and needs to be ripped up. They are the anti-system voters, right? They agree in terms of the unchecked power of supranational corporations, for example. The skepticism towards politics and the economy is shared. They just offer different perspectives on how to change the economy and how to change society. Fundamentally, that's where the Green Party finds its supporter base, in the poor and in the young. So he's actually just inventing fucking fan fiction here to try and say that it's somehow the elite professions of judges who are voting Green, when in fact those same people probably voting Labour. Probably voting Labour, as we've seen, because the Labour Party have the richest voter base. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.